CP1209-29 recording length 04 minutes and 41 seconds. This recording was created using www.spokentext.net. Why is there so much anti-communism in the U.S.? What is the story behind McCarthyism? Anti-communism is very prevalent. It is a part of our culture. The root of it is people who own the means of production and to politicians like capitalism. They would have to give up a lot under socialism. So they created a myth that the CPUSA is violent and undemocratic. On the contrary, we believe in a peaceful revolution, with true democracy, political, economic, and social. The political climate associated with Joseph McCarthy didn't start or end with him. His evil genius was, for a few years in the early 50s, to ride the wave of anti-communist hysteria for his own political purposes as its most virulent practitioner. McCarthyism was one variant of right-wing efforts to crush left, labor, and progressive movements by scapegoating the Communist Party. Such efforts include the Palmer Raids in 1919 to 1920, the Martin Dies-Lenhaus Un-American Activities Committee starting in the 30s, the Truman Doctrine in foreign policy, which used covert operations and undercover funding to thwart the democratic electoral efforts of communist and socialist parties in Europe following WWII, and Truman's imposition of a loyalty oath on public employees in the late 40s. McCarthy saw his chance to become a nationwide figure by becoming the spokesman for the most rabid expression of the anti-communist hysteria. He waved fictitious lists, made outrageous accusations, and ruined lives, careers and movements in the process. When the mainstream political powers realized he was taking things too far for them, they turned and condemned what they were responsible for starting. McCarthyism, both from McCarthy himself and from many, many others, was not really directed at a fictitious communist threat from the Communist Party. It was directed at the labor and progressive movements, aimed at depriving those movements of their most capable, radical leaders, aimed at creating fear so that millions of people who wanted progressive change in the U.S. would be afraid to sign petitions, afraid to join unions and other organizations, afraid to speak up for their rights, needs and views, for fear of being ostracized. McCarthyism is a horrible stain on the democratic rights of our whole people. Its effects continue to be felt, though with nowhere near the virulence of the 50s and early 60s. The Communist Party, at times almost alone, fought through the courts and in the streets, for maintaining democratic and constitutional rights not only for our party, but also for all people. Many of the laws and prosecutions and repressions of the McCarthy period have been repudiated, by the Supreme Court, by lower courts, by the industries that practiced the blacklist against progressive artists, and by historians studying the period. Again, the lingering effects were not just from the actions of one man, reprehensible though he was. Many people and politicians, from the right-wing John Birch Society through Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy and others, all the way to the supposedly liberal Americans for Democratic Action, collaborated to stunt the growth of progressive movements and to isolate them from the majority of workers. Actions such as the prosecutions of national and state leaders of the Communist Party under the Smith Act, the passage of the Taft-Hartley anti-union legislation, the McCarran Act, and others, all deserve as much condemnation as McCarthy himself. McCarthy embodied the line, hypocrisy, jingoism, anti-intellectualism, and demagogy that others shared with him. Like Richard Nixon, the effects on our party were severe. They included 4 to 8-year prison terms for some of our leaders. They were charged with the crime of thinking revolutionary thoughts. More importantly, the effects on the labor, peace, and progressive movements hindered the building of a broad, anti-right-wing, pro-people politics that could have brought about real benefits for working and poor people, similar to the benefits that came in the 30s. Our whole society is still paying the price of those years of repression, reaction, and pro-business policies, and we still have ahead of us the continuing struggle for a country and world based on putting people and nature before profits, and creating peaceful solutions to the problems that face us in this new century. This recording was created using Spoken Text, the free online text-to-speech converter. To learn more about Spoken Text, visit www.spokentech.net.